story about DJT and the Taliban leadership was online recently. It was just a beautiful piece of communication from one of the gentlemen. Trump said to the Taliban, and if you've heard it, great, I'm going to repeat it because I love hearing the story, even if I have to tell it. Trump said, I want a conditions-based withdrawal. That you harm one hair of one American, I will kill you. The interpreter didn't want to pass it on, and Trump said, you tell him, and he told him, and then one of the guys pulled out a nice 6x8 glossy of the Taliban leader's house, and Trump walked out. See, this is the ultimate leverage. That's it, and I hate to say it, but I love to say it. When I was writing my book on leadership, we're talking about leading with the informed consent of the people is the highest form of leadership. And then I went, I'll grow up. Underneath I wrote, but when you're dealing with animals, it's good to be feared. And that's what people have to understand. Even when I use the term, I want Australia to have an intimidating military, they go, oh no, don't say that, that's a bit scary. Good. I don't want anyone coming anywhere near us.
I thought they were only in America.
No. No, it's breathtaking. Oh man, I don't tell surgeons how to cut open bodies. I wish people would stop telling the military how to fight the wars. You want them so scared they come nowhere near you. They come cap in hand and say, excuse me, sir, may I have some of your time to discuss? Yeah, of course. And you're friendly and you're polite and you do what you've got to do. But I want them terrified of us. And so sorry, I've drifted off. I got a bit excited there talking about that. But the leverage is real, and the leverage spans from gentle discussion through to I will fucking kill you. So you've got a choice here. And that's the way these wars are fought. It speaks to the other point that wars are a racket. Now, Trump has shut down how many wars? 8, 10 wars? Why? Because he's a good negotiator? Yes. It doesn't mean he didn't threaten brutally. You and your family will be evaporated if you don't evaporate your crooked relatives. And then when we call, you're going to pick up. And that's basically how it went. That's the way it has to work, because war is a racket. Once again, I've got to correct you on one thing. Leaders of wars don't risk anything. As you then corrected yourself, you said, well, they'll risk other people. But war's a racket. We know that. War's a racket. That was the book by General Smedley.
Butler,
thank you. General Smedley. It's a war's a racket. So when the money stops, guess what? The war stops. Then I used to sit there and laugh. I'd watch the news and there'd be, this freedom fighting group has been fighting for 15 years against this group. I'm thinking, bullshit. They're being paid to do that. Whoever's paying it wants the war to continue because wars cost money. It just does. Weapons, rations, fuel, vehicles. Toyota presented, how many vehicles to ISIS, and ISIS is driving down the road. And they could have been evaporated by a squadron of A-10s in about, 20 to 25 seconds. But the world wasn't allowed to see that. They had to see ISIS, this bunch, and I'm going to say ragheads, not as an insult to Arabs or Muslims, but these guys are fucking morons. These guys couldn't organise a piss up in a brewery, and I mean it. And yet they're allegedly selling oil through Turkey to fund the purchase of alcohol. Please, give me a break. But the moment you cut the money off, watch the war stop. Because the brave ones that'll fight will fight very carefully, and they won't sacrifice like national leaders who are happy, as you say, to waste as many soldiers as they need to because they're getting paid to do it. They don't want a result. So anyway, this leverage thing is critical for people to understand. It's not what you want to hear, but that's the way the war goes. Sometimes you want to squeeze the trigger. You see the guy. He's putting an IED in your little tap on the shoulder, and he goes, no, not this one, let this one go in. And you sort of grit your teeth, and you pull back, and there was something else going on behind the scenes. So it's a tough game. It's a tough game, and I'll finish on this point. When people criticise DJT, or Kash Patel, or Pam Bondi and the rest of it, and look, everybody's acting to a point. They're acting to a script for certain. Some of them are going to be exposed as troublemakers. Others will just be good people doing a tough job. Sit back and say, this is terrible. Well, relative to what? This is taking too long. Relative to what? What was life like before the white hats turned up? And we now see it, and the great unwashed out there are going to see it in great detail, in living colour, and they'll be turning off their laptops and their TV sets, nauseated by what they see. So relative to what? It's too slow. Relative to what? Relative to nothing that was happening for decades while children were being trafficked. You kidding? So it's settle down, folks. Have a look, watch it, open your minds and understand that. And I said this a couple of years ago, in fact, 2 years ago next month, at a presentation when I was explaining the need for operational security and center of gravity to a collection of A1 people, trying to get them to think and elevate their thinking to understand why things happen the way they do. And I said to them, why are we in this situation? Then I told everybody, put your hand up, because all of us, to some point, let it happen. We are responsible. If we believed that we had sovereignty, and if we had the wit to understand what that meant in terms of development of policy, if we had the wit then to turn that policy into electing representatives who are going to fight for that policy, we wouldn't be here. So the human population, put your hands up and say, we're here because we had our heads up our backsides and we should have thought about it a bit better. Good news, we are now, and we have to remember this moment so it never happens again. But understand this, we're here because we fell asleep. Australia particularly, we've had the gentlest life on the planet up until recently. We went through the last, half a century, where the biggest problem was the beer cold and were the waves going to be good at the beach? Intentionally designed. We were allowed to fall asleep. We became a nation of dodos. Now, the dodos is an extinct bird that had no natural predator, and I think it was on the island of Mauritius, and the Portuguese sailors turned up, and these dodos waddled up, and the sailors went, fresh meat, ripper, lopped off their heads and ate them into extinction. Now, don't correct me on the details. I don't care if it's Portuguese, Spanish, or Mauritius, or wherever it is. The point is this: Australians were allowed to become a bunch of dodos, couldn't spot a threat if we tried, and now they're getting the reward for falling asleep. Eternal vigilance. What is it? The price of freedom is eternal vigilance. It's tiring, but somebody's got to do it. So there you go. That's this leverage thing. How wars are fought, why they're fought, the way it's got to be fought, and back off the white hats. You don't like what they're doing. Away you go. Away you go. Do better. No.
Yeah.
Tough,
exactly.
Difficult. You want to do understanding. Anyway, there you go.
Thanks for that, because most people will bitch, but they don't have a plausible solution in their own mind anyways. So again, you can criticize. This is far bigger than even I can imagine. You said one thing in there, and that was that this can never happen again. It's got to be handled in a way it can never happen again. And we've seen from the Q drop, Mike, that's one thing that sticks in my mind, is that the response and what's going to be dealt out is going to be so definitive that nobody in the world in history will ever try to do to this planet what they have accomplished now. We know what it was like from stories of our grandparents who lived through World War, or the Depression more than anything else. World War II is one thing. Depression's completely different. The behaviors and habits of the people that came from Depression era in the U.S., they save every penny they can. They don't spend themselves into debt. They're always prepared with that mindset if we ever have economic destruction like that. Because it's rooted in their DNA and it's passed on to their offspring by at least 2 generations that faded out. My belief is that this nation, the U.S., has to go through extraordinary pain, the entire country, so it can be affected by what we've all done or not done, that we shouldn't have done or should have done. Because I've watched California, when I lived out there for 10 years working, Republican politics there, what I saw in California is a state that's completely insulated from the economics of the rest of the country. They could support decisions coming out of D.C. The economy is so powerful in California then, back in 2002, 2004, they were the 5th largest economy in the world behind 4 countries. So no matter what happened in California, the stupidity that came out of Sacramento, the state has a $20 billion a year budget deficit in 2004. $10 billion was funding all the social services for illegal aliens. And I remember telling one of my clients, this state's going down. It's going down. They laughing at me, patting me on the head, cute little Republican. Yeah. Well, the fact is, it did go down twice. The only reason it didn't go to the bottom of the ocean is because the U.S. taxpayer bailed out California twice. And they're bullshit. But they support all the things that they philosophically think is, warm and fuzzy. They don't live in the Midwest. They've never been to the Midwest. They've never gone through the Rust Belt. They've never gone through flyover country to know that these stupid decisions that there are for that come out of D.C. wreck homes, wreck industries, wreck jobs, wreck economies. It's like that all over the country. These people are completely insulated from it in California. That's where the stupidity comes from. And I think the reality is until they feel the pain, like the rest of the country has from shit like that, they're still going to have an idiot mindset. I believe this country needs its own ass beating. I don't think I deserve it. I know you guys don't. You've been fighting for this country from forever. But the unaware and unawake American, I believe, needs an ass beating economically. And as you said, it's coming. We are headed for an economic ass beating in the world, especially in the transition, but especially in the U.S. And I believe that is the trigger point of pain that every single person will feel, and get the zombies who are just fence-sitting zombies to say, how the hell did this happen to this country? Well, now that you're asking, let me tell you. Now they're opened up to who did this. And I think that's what seeds the rest of the country with this blowback internally in their own soul, because realize we fucked up. We listened to their bullshit, we believed them, and now we're seeing the truth. And I think that's what it's going to take to sear in their memory, not the discovery, but it's going to be hard to put gas in your car, pay the bill, get food. Who knows? I don't know if it's going to be that cataclysmic. And that's what I ask you, Mike, what you think. Are we still going to head for that economic ass beating? If we're not, we don't win because the Great Awakening is what's important, not taking down the Satanic Empire. The Great Awakening is what's critical. People have to wake the hell up, because if they don't, globally, this shit will be right back to where we were 100 years from now. It'll happen all over again, unless some calamity is wired in the DNA of everybody on the receiving end of it. What do you think about the economic side of it, Mike?
Yeah, we've already seen it. I think Lieutenant Colonel Bosey talked about it. You know, the dodo bird stuff. That's perfect analogy for the people in California. You know, go to the beach, have a great time, and meanwhile, their state is being taken over by extreme leftist communists, and now they're finding out the hard way. And same thing with a lot of these, big blue leftist cities. New York, I mean, look at New York. We're going to have a communist that's going to be the mayor of New York here pretty soon. So it's going to be a continual wake-up call for these people in some of these cities. These cities will become cesspools. We've already seen it in a lot of these places, but it's going to start to accelerate, I think, very quickly. The pushback on these cities, these criminals, these communists, and so forth, is coming. We're going to see the military come into these places, and they're going to resist having their cities cleaned up. How crazy is that? They're like drug infested, crime infested, cartels pretty much running the states and the cities. So they have to resist, because they've had decades of having this criminal activity and benefiting from it, while the people have just let it happen. So now everybody's starting to wake up to it, but it's too late for a lot of these places. Now, as far as you go back, I can segue over into Epstein. So Epstein's another thing that's it's layered. So when I was in Tier 1 and then in the CIA, I saw the layering. So you expose a certain thing so that everybody can see it, but you don't know how deep it goes, how many people are actually being taken out. So they let you see the surface layer. That's the Epstein. We've seen some of the lists. We've seen pictures of Clinton with Epstein, and people, pictures of little boy Bush, playing with planes, crashing into the Twin Towers and so forth. So all of this is being exposed. Everybody's like, look at that. What is that? Well, you don't know the deeper aspect of that. We've been talking about this for decades now. I mean, just recently, President Trump went over and talked to King Charles III, and then he leaves. And yesterday we had Prince Andrew voluntarily gave up his titles and from the pressure from King George or King Charles III. So we're seeing, this movement. It's slow. It's a grinding movement that's eating these people up, and they're being forced into smaller and smaller, domiciles. I believe that's what we're going to see in some of these cities, like you're talking about. So, all of the people that had all this control, they're losing their control. The cities that had this criminal activity, London, you name it, criminals running London, the mayor of London, another Muslim that is same thing in New York. The soon-to-be Muslim mayor was just seen with terrorist that was part of the World Trade Center first bombing. He was seen with them. That should be shocking everybody, but it's not. So everybody's like, he should be gone from right now, just by that picture. But everybody's like, they're going to vote for him. They're going to vote for him. He's going to be in office. So they're going to learn the hard way. But they're being forced more and more into these big cities, and they're being squeezed into those big cities. And we're going to have military come in, and eventually it's going to be, it's going to be game. All bets are off. We're going to come in and we're just going to clean this up. And then it's going to be violence. They're going to be violent. And it's going to be some of these cities, like we've talked about for years, are going to be destroyed.
Well, here's what I'm thinking that ends up, this would be a great strategy. And I think it'd be an effective one psychologically as well as karmically. These cities, they sent the National Guard into to start getting the job done, ICE or whoever, to clean these places up. These places, after all that they have seen and what this country has endured, and they would elect this clown, if they actually elect this clown, and let's say somewhere in LA or wherever, San Francisco, electing these kind of clowns, I think it's going to get so bad, and I don't think Trump and the military is going to do shit. They're going to let them be torn to pieces, these people destroying everything in sight, and make these cities beg for Trump to send in that military. I think that's what we end up having. They'll be literally crying, please send in the military. You talk about a massive bucket of defecation coming down over your head for the rest of your life. That's never the smell will never wear off of these people because they led the charge to have their city destroyed. And when it was virtually destroyed, then beg for the guy that they were attacking for sending in the heroic rescuers. I wouldn't doubt for 1 second if that's Trump's strategy on those type of cities. What do you think, Ricardo?
Yeah, we're seeing that already. They cleaned up Washington, D.C., and then immediately the videos popped up. Gee, it was nice walking down the street without getting robbed, raped, whatever. So, again, it's that predictive programming, which the White House is just using the techniques of the Black Hats because it works. And so people think, okay, well, there's a better way to live. Look at what happened to D.C., but you did right. They will die in a ditch until they're begging. This group falls into the category of what we call the yellow hats. The yellow hats, psychologically, timorous souls. I mean, they're just frightened. They will sell their children's health rather than face any challenge, personal challenge, which they did with the jab. But the yellow hats will never move because we analysed the demographic breakup of the population. And the yellow hats will not move until the pain of staying where they are is greater than the pain of the unknown. These people will not step into the unknown. Never do it. As Mike said, smaller boxes, they stay there, right? So this is, in answer to that question, how bad is the financial crash going to be? They will move until the pain of staying where they are is greater. You're on the money. They will beg shamelessly for DJT to come and save them. Now, the financial crash is going to hurt a lot of people, but there's a balance here that the White Hats have to play. They can't collapse the system so completely that it takes months to recover, because if food isn't delivered, you're going to have massive starvation. Black Hats win. The global supply chain works on just in time rather than just in case. In the old days, we had just in case. You had a ton of stuff out the back, and if you needed it, it was there, and you accepted the cost, And this is all the financial advice. Stop putting your capital into your storage stuff because that's capital. It could be earning money. It's not earning your money. So just in time, which is fantastic. They tried in the military, not so smart with the military because we're a just-in-case type organisation. We've got to be. But the global supply chain has to continue functioning. And there's so many moving parts. Once it starts to collapse, you can have real dramas trying to pick it up again. And so, yes, the pain's going to be there. It'll be real pain, and people will be screaming and crying, and they will go hungry, but not to the point where the supply chain breaks because it has to pick up quickly and then start refeeding the people once they're on their knees begging for help. And it's embarrassing. I look at Australia and I used to think we were manned with, bronze Anzacs, taller and tougher and smarter than your average digger around the planet. And it used to be that. Even General Rommel, when he was, during the relief of Tobruk, he drove past a group of 50-odd Australian soldiers who were PWs, and he made the comment to his wife in a letter saying, these were tall, tough, stronger men, stronger than average. Obviously, they're the elite of the British Empire. No, they were just Australians. Interestingly, though, and to your point, how much pain do we have to feel? This is the same British stock that came in 100 years earlier. And so the same stock, British stock, basically, in an environment, Australia is a tough country. We don't contend with God. God just sits back and lets nature crush us. The farm, you got to have a big heart to farm in Australia because it is a tough business. It's a tough country. And so that capacity to endure it was built into us as a nation. And so when we did go to war, First War, Second War, these bronze Anzacs turned up and they were accustomed to hard work. They were accustomed to tough conditions. On a personal level, growing up around the kitchen table as a little boy, I'd hear the war stories of my parents and grandparents because I was born in 60, so I've been around the block a few times, and you can do the math to figure out how old my parents were in the wars. My mother's mother and father, my maternal grandparents, were with the partisans in Yugoslavia, and my maternal grandmother, she was tough as old boots, and I know my grandfather loved her because they met on the battlefield, killing Germans together. He fell in love with her there.
What a love story.
Oh, yeah, it was fantastic. Other side of the family, my paternal grandparents, he was a major with the fascist army, and his wife, my grandmother, she was an Austrian. And so the stories we heard set a high bar, you can imagine, right? And my dad tells the story of being strafed by a Spitfire as he's being pushed down a pram down the road with by his sister. And so when I hear people whine about, I didn't get my Twister 11 with my Frappuccino. Hey, fucking toughen up, princess. Life is tough, right? You're too soft. You're not built for life on Earth. So what that's going to do, hopefully, it'll hurt enough people so they can start telling stories about what bad looks like. And the kids have to hear this. And what did you do? And hopefully they'll say, well, we risked everything for you and your future. And there's enough of us out there that are doing that, not just us on the screen. We're the lucky guys that get a profile. But there are countless, certainly in Australia we've got countless heroic mums and dads and grandfathers and grandmothers who are out there day after day handing out leaflets, raising awareness, working hard to save the country. So there's a lot of things out there, and I'm sure in the US, I know the US is the same, and the rest of the world is the same. There are people out there fighting, and they'll be able to tell the story. I didn't shovel shit in Louisiana. I actually did something, and that's what the kids have to hear. And this is the foundation of it never happening again. No, you don't want this. I saw it. We got a whiff of it. It's no good. So straighten up and fly right, and make sure you prepare for the next generation.
Well, I'll tell you that leaves an indelible impression when your parents or your grandparents, who you dearly love, are telling you how the world was and what they had to endure to get there. I remember my grandmother telling me after World War II, when VJ Day, came through and it's announced, and she said it was unbelievable. People were pouring out into the streets, throwing rolls of toilet paper like streamers, like there was toilet paper like covering everything, and that's how they were out there celebrating and dancing and hugging each other because, quote unquote, we had won the war. And certainly, we haven't necessarily learned the lessons of our fathers, because of the situation we're in. I want to ask a question. Many have tiptoed around this question for a long time. And I think, based on what I'm seeing, that we're inching closer and closer to a reckoning in this particular arena. And that is the post that was dropped. And I can't even remember the context this drop was put out that day. Can't remember the context, but, and it was a short one, that said this: we are saving Israel for last. There is a reason why not mentioned here a single time. And that was it, right? So here we are, and that post might have been 2019. Here we are 6 years later, 5 years later. And I started about, in fact, I was out overseas last week. We're on a boat. I wasn't getting off the boat to these different, historical sites because of my ankle injury. So I had extra time where I wasn't on these off-boat excursions in Egypt and other places. So, of course, I'm rolling through social media. And what I noticed is this trend that's just, it's like a slot machine. You're on Instagram and it's talking about Israel, something about Israel. You scroll up to the next one and it's one. I started compiling links in an email to myself that's now about this long of all these links, like dozens and dozens of them. And there's so many people coming out exposing the truth about Israel. And I'm like, holy Mary, Mother of God. This is headed toward a cataclysmic moment. And what that looks like, I don't know. But I've said since 2020 many times on this radio show, starting that in the summer of 2020, that Israel is the Bolshevik outpost of the Khazarian mafia. That's a fact. You look at Benjamin Netanyahu. The guy's born in Poland, I believe. He has a Polish last name. He changed his name to Netanyahu. All this backstory about where we are today with Israel, the conflict with the Palestinians, the truth's coming out about all of it. And there is so much exposure coming from so many people out there on social media just shelling all these truths that have been hidden about that nation and the hell that it's unleashed on earth in terms of all the wars that, they get the military arm of their trifecta to launch around the world, and that's Washington, D.C. So this has nothing to do with the good Israeli people. It has nothing to do with Jews or anti-Semitism. I've already been branded that, which is absurd in its face. But so that can be said over and over. It doesn't make a difference to me. It's absurd. But there is a reality here that's going to be exposed to the world, that these Khazarians, the bloodline of Khazarians that claim to be Jewish, have zero Hebrew DNA. I mean, how many people around the world that believe they're Jewish aren't because they've been told they were? And it has nothing to do with, the Ashkenazis, let me say my benefit, the person who gave me a chance to come back from this catastrophic incident is an Ashkenazi Jew, an elderly man, one of the dearest men in my whole life, second only to my father, but both are deceased now. It has nothing to do with that. It has to do with the truths about Israel coming out all over the place. I'm sure you guys are seeing this. What are your thoughts on that, Mike? What do you think all this means?
Yeah, the exposure, I mean, even your chat, people are talking about it. So every chat that I've seen, or live chat, my chats, other chats that I've been on other shows, watching people talk about this, everyone is exposing this. This is magnificent. It's unbelievable. But I don't think it stops there. I think we have the Jesuits who are a problem too. We have all these different groups, religious, control systems that have to be exposed. The one in Israel, that's one of them, the Ashkenazi, the Zionist, and so forth. But we have a lot of them. throughout even the Buddhists have, you would think the most peaceful on earth. There's some problems in that one as well. So I think a lot of these religious institutions get exposed, just like I think all of us have been talking about. We're not going to see any kind of political system that's existing right now go forward in the future. And I think that's the same thing with a lot of these religious institutions that have been controlling us and manipulating us for eons of time. So the wake up, is Israel for last, or is it say for last and it's the one that after everything else is cleaned up? There's a lot to be cleaned up. I don't know. So possibly, will that be the last one that gets exposed, and then we see all of the other ones because we exposed that one, and all the other ones are like boop, 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 boop. It could be, but yeah, there is a massive movement. People are waking up to a lot of control systems. The awakening of humanity is staggering to me. I never thought it would be on this level. I thought we'd be like, have some, people would wake up and we'd like kumbaya in the future, but this is way beyond that. It's like staggering what's happening. So yeah, brilliant, amazing time. We've been exposing it, and I think that in the future, it's going to continue to stagger our imaginations, how much can be exposed.
What do you think, Colonel? What's your viewpoint on that? And what are we headed toward here with this constant flow of information coming from the people about Israel?
Yeah, that's a good point, that first one, that it's coming from the people. It's like, what was that analogy? I can't remember who used it. You hold a beach ball underwater at the beach, and you need a lot of effort to keep it under there. But the moment you take that hand away, it flies to the surface. And this is an important part where the people get to say what they want to say without being branded, as you said, necessarily anti-Semite or anti-whatever. I've been called both a Zionist and an anti-Semite simultaneously, so good for me. I can manage to be both at the same time. So it's the people coming up, and that's the important part, because if DJT or anybody of note came up and said, oh, this is a problem, they go, oh, well, you're just whatever. But this overwhelming flood, it's like a tsunami. It's not terribly high, but there's kilometers of water behind that initial wave that's just going to keep pushing forward. So that's point number one. The source is the people, and that's great, because then now we're exercising free speech. Can you be wrong? Absolutely. Can you be right? Fill your boots. But people can now speak, and so there's this release. I can now speak openly. So that's at one level. Next point. Israel, in its current place in the psychology of the planet, Israel is the only democracy in the Middle East. We must support Israel. The Bible says support Israel. We must support Israel. Any country that blesses Israel be blessed. All that sort of nonsense that a lot of the biblical literalists hang on to, that's about to be shattered. Now, the downstream effects of that are not insignificant. I mean, really, this is really important, because when Israel, the facade of Israel is cracked even slightly, and it's not going to be slightly, it's going to be significant, no matter how gently you do it, the downstream effects are huge. So you've got the biblical literalists that are going to lose it, because this is the one thing with what they grip onto with white-knuckle fear. I must hang on to my religion. That's not a criticism. We all do it. We have our foundational belief system that makes the world make sense. And absent that, we are now untethered, floating in space, and that is not a place that most people can handle. So that's step number one. What are they going to hang on to? When I talk online, I say to people, just hang on to Jesus Christ and pray to the God that he prayed to in Gethsemane. That's as sophisticated as my theology goes, because I always resonated with his words, I resonated with his actions, and the rest to me, even as a 9-year-old boy doing the Catholic catechism, doing my test and getting 100% for religion, I thought to myself, this is insane. A lot of the stuff they're saying doesn't make sense. This isn't a God of love. This is somebody bloody awful. But I didn't say anything at the time. Obviously, and so what I say to people is hang on to JC and pray to the God he prayed to. So you're on the right track. The rest is commentary by a bunch of people, at best, doing their best to comprehend the mind of God, which is incomprehensible. So stop looking for definitive answers. Work it out for yourself. God gave you a brain. Simplify it and live your life a good life. Now, that's at the next level. Then you've got a level beyond that. When Judaism, when Israel, as is the source of Judaism, which it's not, because Judaism, and I'm sorry for the extended explanation here, but it's necessary, Judaism is has been smashed with the Babylonian Talmudic religion. So the original Hebrews and their original belief system was smashed with Talmudic Babylonianism and sacrifice to Baal and Moloch and the rest of it. And that's what we think Judaism is. So when you read the Talmud, you think, this is sick. This is genuinely not helpful. This is really bad stuff. Now, people say, well, that's nonsense, really? They tried it again recently by creating Chrislam, which was smashing Islam and Christianity together, and they built a precinct in the United Arab Emirates with a mosque at one corner, a synagogue at another, and a Christian church saying, oh, Chrislam it's great, and even the Pope okayed it. They're not bright people. They have a game plan, and they just keep playing it over and over and over again. Now, it works if you don't remember. But if you can actually read and remember, none of it works because you've seen this before. So once Judaism comes down and realize this is not good in its philosophy, there's another now step where people are starting to shatter their beliefs because Judeo-Christian beliefs. No. Christ stood alone. He stood against the synagogue of Satan. Then you've got books like The Naked Bible by Mauro Biglino, who's an Italian interlinear translator of the Bible. What does that mean? It means he translates literally every word, and he goes to the etymology of that word. There is no metaphor, there is no interpretation. What does this book say? And if you've got the stones to do it, Christians, get out there and read it, because what you'll find is the Bible, as we think it is, Old Testament, we think it's a story of the 12 tribes of Israel, and there's a monotheistic God, favored those that favored Israel, and that's why they won wars. Not so. It's a story of one tribe, run by one of the Elohim, and the Elohim is actually plural. So there are a number of Elohim, each got their own tribe. And the one that Jacob's tribe got wasn't particularly powerful or well regarded, but it was a nasty piece of work, a very nasty piece of work. And so you start to read the Bible and you realize, my God, this is not what I thought it was. A monotheistic God was never mentioned in the Old Testament, ever. And I'm starting to shatter people. That's okay. You can take a shot at me. I don't care. Look, I'm the icebreaker. I'm going to crash through, and if people get offended, tough. But at least you can follow in the wake, and you don't have to hit the ice flow head on. That's my job. You can follow on behind if you think it's worthwhile. So that's the next part. Then you layer on top of that. Then you realize this thing has been controlling the planet for 250 years in a very practical sense, and the implications of that. So all the lies just in the last quarter of a millennium, let's say, and the Masonic filth that is tied in with that as well. Is that enough? Let's keep going, because this is why Israel's lost. So I'll say it again, the downstream effects of Israel being revealed goes back, as Michael just said, eons. It goes back eons. Because then you start talking about, well, hang on, who were these guys? Well, you start investigating, these were the slave masters for the human race. What do you mean the slave masters for the human race? What do you mean they were designed to be smarter than the average bear so they could keep us in check? I don't understand what you're saying. Exactly. Got to do some research. Even that's not enough. Let's keep going back. Let's go back further now. Let's go back tens of thousands of years. And the battles over India. And what turned out into the Hindu religion, which is a stratified supremacist religion like most of the others other than Christianity, where they describe battles in the sky, which sounds a lot like Star Wars. And so once again, it's not just about Jaime running the local kosher deli. It's got nothing to do with that. As Israel collapses, the flow-on downstream effects of what went before, people are going to lose their shit. And that's what I say to them. You give them something to hang on to. And the Christians have got something great to hang on to. That's Christ and the God he prayed through at Gethsemane. Hang on to that and you'll get through this. I feel for the other religions because they're going to be just as exposed. The Jews are going to lose their stuff. The Hindus will lose their stuff. The Muslims. There's no evidence that Muhammad ever even existed. None. Zero. Nothing. First mentioned 100 years after he allegedly did what he did. All nonsense. Fabricated. By whom? Good question.
Them.
Why is it similar to Judaism? Good question. Why does the Quran mimic almost exactly the rules and regulations of the Old Testament? Do you research? So it's a very long answer, but I had to give you that because it's not just a matter of, as I said, Jaime the local kosher deli. Nothing to do with him. But when Israel goes down, Everything now is up for grabs. Every fundamental belief that everybody on the planet has, except maybe a few tribes in Papua New Guinea, everybody's going to be in pain, and they're going to have to move through this. But as I said at the beginning, unfortunately, people haven't done the work. Those that have are in a better shape to handle it. They'll still be in pain. But a lot of people are going to say, I can't handle it. And I'm sorry, it's too late. We've been at this for years. Some of us, I've got some people in my organisation, they've been at this for 40 years, saying, yelling into the wind, the poor sods, I feel for them. You didn't listen. You laughed. You went back to football, beer, surfing, in Australian barbecues, not caring that your kids are getting jabbed. They died. You didn't care as long as you can make your mortgage payment. Your value sets are being tested. You must now, you've enjoyed the benefits. Now you're going to pay the price. It's going to hurt, and it's going to hurt a lot. So that's why Israel last, downstream effects, global collapse of our understanding.
Religions. Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, that just falls completely in line with the information I got from secret space program whistleblowers that talked about when there is that reckoning that we're all waiting for, and that is the reveal of non-terrestrial activity, existence, far beyond our capabilities at this time, billions of years more advanced in every way, shape, and form, when they drop themselves into our sphere of acknowledgement, then the one thing that's going to set off in motion, it's going to shatter the concept of religion and all religions as complete fraudulent lies. All of them, all made up by these controllers, again, to separate us, and we don't even use common sense. Like, okay, so you're going to have a handful of children. There were 5 in my family, and you're going to give each one of them different belief systems and see how that works out. It's going to be nothing but chaos, fighting. I mean, it's absurd that you would do that to your child. You're not going to do that. Yet our creator, whatever our creator is, a quantum field, an energy field, a consciousness, whatever, right? A man with a robe and shit on, whatever people want to believe that our creator is, I don't really care. But that idea that there are going to be, there's 26,000 different sects of religion on the planet. It grows more absurd by the century, and there'll be 5,000 more in the next century, and it makes no sense whatsoever. There is a point of origin, a source whereby we all come from, and there is a spiritual foundation, underpinning, and tethering to our creator, and everything is about the spiritual connection, but it's become about religion, nothing but religion. And so what I say to my Christian brothers and sisters, that certainly will go ape shit, and they hear me, people have walked away from my channel because I talk like this and have been for 5 years. The simple fact is that Christ existed on the planet. There's proof everywhere. There's proof that Christ for 18 years was on a walkabout through India, Tibet, Iraq, studying with people of high consciousness, whatever you call them, Buddhists, shamans, people of very high consciousness. And he was able to raise his consciousness likely to a higher degree than probably any of them, and create these miracles that are guided and directed and facilitated by working in concert with the laws of the universe, which is quantum physics. The consciousness, thought process, the vibration effect of it, all of that is affected by consciousness and thought. So yes, how can you walk on water? Your consciousness is so high, vibration is so high that you're so light, you're a light body walking on water. You're doing all kinds of amazing things. And we call those miracles. There's no such thing as a miracle. Christ said, these things you will do and even greater than I. These things, he didn't say miracles, right? Didn't call them miracles. These things you will do and even greater than I. We're supposed to swallow the idea that these are just miracles. Christ is a magician. He's a magician. He was the magician. Again, we are taught to regurgitate the bullshit that they teach us in Sunday school or church or whatever about this doctrine called the Bible, and I have mine right over here. It's sitting right over there. Since I was 12 years old. It's 48 years old. I still keep my Bible. It's very critical to me. I've read Proverbs and Psalms so many times, man's relationship with man and man's relationship with God in Psalms, trying to get that understanding. It doesn't come from a judgment. It comes from extensive study for 2 decades to realize this is bullshit. Not all of it. There's very valuable, important aspects of that in there. That's why I keep it, and I still go to church. I don't go to church often. Pastor Bob Joyce is my pastor, but he's 5 hours away, so I go when I'm cruising through town. I always have to be there, because here's a man that has a spirit that he gets it. He doesn't say it like I do, but he knows exactly what I'm saying. He keeps saying God is inside of you. You got to go inside to find God, right? I'm like, he knows what I know. He's saying it in a more palatable way. But I look forward to religion being smashed to pieces and its grip on humanity being the end all of finally having the spiritual consciousness freedom to directly connect to our power source. And all the other bullshit is washed away, the fluoride and the propaganda and all the bullshit lies about religion, the Bible itself too. Very powerful book. I mean, it's one of the most powerful books on earth. One of the two. But there again, if it was complete and it was 100% true, and I say both, 100% true what's there and fully complete, the truth and all truth of our creation and the important avatars. How do you explain millions of children being butchered in underground tunnels by Satanist lunatics and killers if it's so complete, right? Religion's had the most dramatic impact on the human species, yet we have a murder machine that's going on Earth every year by the millions. So you're going to try to tell me that the Christ consciousness is at its full power coming out of the churches and from, the systems that project it onto us? I dare say it isn't, because I know the power of Christ, his message, his truth, and his life would have demolished this thing literally overnight. We all know Christ has that power, but people can't see it. We live in a satanic realm on earth. How the hell that happened? Because they're not telling us everything. They're distorting Christ's message in so grave ways that it's led to the hell on earth that you and I don't have to endure. Mike doesn't, but there's millions underground in these tunnel systems and horrific, brutal, bloody situations that they're living every moment of their life until they expire. So therefore, where's the power? Where's the divine power to end all of this? Well, it's there. We just have to bring down their bullshit machine on earth and clear the roadway so we can all become educated on God's truth, whatever God is, on Christ's mission, or any other, valuable theological avatars of the past. I don't rate or rank any of them, whichever one's contributed good, as long as it falls in conjunction with the reality of the spiritual ecosystem where we come from. Anyways, I'm just pontificating, but I'm just making a case for why I've said on most every stage I've stood on for the last 5 years, certainly every stage I think on the Reawaken America tour for 2 years, religion is the single worst thing that has ever happened to humanity. And these are some of the biggest church stays in the country. I've said it, and I've never been run out for saying it. You just get an applause, and I get the pastors, every one of them, saying to me, "Thanks for doing what you do. We love your show. We love your work." And I always just look at the wife and say, "You actually allow him to listen to my language?" And they always laugh about it. But I think that's going to be a big turning point in the world right there. And you're right. It's going to be cataclysmic on the psyche of humanity. And these guys from the secret space program said the psychological devastation is going to be so bad on the planet that there are going to be some people who won't recover. There are going to be some people who you're going to have to get them out of bed, feed them, your parents. You're going to have to feed them, clothe them, bathe them, whatever, because they're going to be in such a psychological state of realizing everything we've been lied to about, specifically religion, has been a complete fallacy, and they're going to have one hell of a time recovering from it. And it's going to take us people to take care of them like infants until they can finally get their feet out, get it underneath them. The con of all cons. Anyways, that's just, I'll let you guys pick up the footnotes off of that.
Yeah, you look at the religion like you're talking about, and you go deep into it, and we're talking about the child abuse and so forth. Every religion that I've looked at, I've been in the Middle East quite a bit. Islam is like horrific with children, and the same thing with the Catholic Church. We've seen this, yet they still exist. I mean, that should have shut them down completely, just that alone. But yet people just look the other way and allow it. So I agree with you, Scott. There will be, once it's really fully revealed, all of it, then people are going to be like just dumbfounded, and a lot of people are going to check out. A lot will probably check out themselves, right? And then we'll move forward. Those of us that have been, like Lieutenant Colonel Bosey's been talking about, we've been telling you. You chose to go back to the grills and the beers, and you didn't want to listen, and now it's going to hit you right upside the head like a brick, and you're going to like, what? And it's going to be earth-shattering for a lot of people. But we'll pick up the pieces, and like we're all saying, I think we're all in agreement. It's going to be a better world, but there's going to be a lot of people that aren't going to, be able to handle a better world. They've been living in a world that's extremely corrupt and horrific, and they've been agreeing to it, and they're going to feel bad about that. Now we've seen military guys, once they wake up to the reality that they have been used in a lot of these battlefieldescapes, they go into an extreme PTSD, and some of them take their lives. We'll see the same thing like we're talking about with a lot of these people that have just marched to the beat of the political systems and the religious systems and the educational systems and so forth. It's going to shatter them all the way to their core, and they're not going to be able to make it.
Mm-hmm. So you think there will be a lot of people who just commit suicide, Mike, because they just can't take it?
Or it'll be like you're talking about. They'll just won't get out of bed. They won't feed themselves, and they'll just expire, just starve themselves to death or something. So, there's going to be a lot of that.
I get asked sometimes how I can handle all this shift so quickly, and it's not quickly. It's like, I wrote my book, and someone said, how long did it take you to write it? I said, about 55 years, or 59 years, because there's all that life experience. But let me give you the moment where I knew I actually started examining this stuff and had to dismantle my own set of beliefs and then reconstruct them. I was actually in the SAS regiment. I was the adjutant. I'm sitting in my room overlooking the sand dunes of Swanbourne, just sort of mind in neutral, just staring into space. And I saw this bright light, incredibly bright pinpoint of light. And all of a sudden, everything made sense. I was at absolute peace, and I went, oh, of course. Everything makes sense. I'm talking a spiritual moment, right? An event, courtesy of the other side, just to give me a glimpse. And everything made sense. And I've never felt such peace in my life. It was extraordinary. It's not like I knew anything more. It just made sense. That's any way I can describe it. And then that feeling faded, and I went back to being an average guy where I'm worried about, what's happening tomorrow, what's my girlfriend worried about, blah, 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 all that sort of shit. But that was the beginning of an examination of everything I started to believe in. And I tell you this story because people are going to wonder, well, what do I do? What do I do? How do I get through this? Well, here's how I got through it. I got to the point at that stage of my life where I didn't believe that God existed for a whole bunch of rational reasons. And as you said, Scott, how can a God exist? All those normal questions. Why do good things, bad things happen to good people? Blah, blah, blah. All that sort of nonsense. I started off being a good Catholic boy and the rest of it. But then I discovered alcohol and women, and I sort of went off the track a bit. And then I started looking at life from a very terrestrial perspective. Anyway, what happened was this. I said, okay, I'm going to start from the premise there is no God. Not because I'm angry at the stories, but I need a set of rules to live my life. And I now have to live my life absent God. God doesn't exist. Now, I was terrified to actually say that. and I'll give you the longer version of this if you don't mind, because it's important. Mm-hmm. So I'm sitting in my room at the offices of mess at SAS, and I'm thinking, I have to say it. I have to publicly make this declaration. God doesn't exist. I no longer believe in God. And all of a sudden, I got this image in my mind's eye, but it was more than an image. It was an experience. You know those old school steam trains, but those big, black, huge ones. There's steam and sparks coming out of the thing, and it's careening down a track. And I saw myself, I'm hanging to the outside of this thing, and I'm literally rocking backwards and forwards in this experience. And I can hear the engine, I can hear the whistle, and the wind rush, and it's terrifying. Absolute terror. Absolute terror. It was. I've never been so scared, and I mean this, in my life. This is the most scared I've ever been, because I had to say the word, God doesn't exist. Here's the funny part. I was afraid that if I said it, he'd destroy me. Anyway, so I'm hanging onto the side of this engine, and I went, nah, you've got to do it. And I went, bang, and I let go. I said, God doesn't exist. Now, here's what happened instantaneously. I'm back at peace, and I am hovering alongside this train. The train's still careening backwards and forwards and smoke, but I can't see it, and I'm not affected by it. So I'm at a profound level of peace. I went, well, that was easy. Good for me. That moment passed. And then being sensible, I said, okay, since there is no God, there are no consequences to anything I do. I can live my life any way I want. I can rape, murder, steal. Yeah, it doesn't matter. It just doesn't matter. Now, I didn't believe that as a philosophy. I was starting from first principles. How am I going to live my life absent this theology, ideology, moral construct, set of values that I've been given since birth? How do I now consciously, as an independent, sapient being, live my life in this world? And so I very quickly transitioned from I can do whatever the hell I want, hooray for me and to hell with you, to thinking, okay, well, I don't want to do that because I know what a low-trust environment's like. Everyone's carrying guns and you're afraid you're not going to make it through the day. Do I want to live with that? Long story short, over a period of time, having now started to read deeply on just about everything and anything, I went to the university, I'm reading the special and general theories of relativity, I'm reading everything I could about anything to start front-end loading my brain with data and information upon which I could build a serious value set, a serious philosophy for my life absent God. The hugely amusing thing, and I'm sure God was sitting back giggling to himself at the time as I'm going through this process, I got to the conclusion, you know what? If I live like Christ, I think the world would be a nice place. And I examined all the alternatives, and I went, that's it. Just live like Christ. Live Christ's life. And then I almost got sent back to 1969 at Macaulay Preparatory School in Rose Bay, Sydney, New South Wales, where the little boy heard the stories of Christ who left the 99 sheep to go recover the one, and all those meaningful stories that set me on a path. And I went, you know what? Let's just live a Christian life, but not the church. Live Christ's life, live Christ's words, live his example. Now, I get it wrong regularly, spectacularly wrong. That's not the point. The point is I know who I am, where I'm going, and how I'm going to get there. And it comes back to that point that you were speaking about before I came on, Scott. We were talking about being a man. Men have to step up, and men aren't agreeable. Men have a set of values. They know who they are, where they're going, and when those values are transgressed, they have the courage to stand up and say, you don't do that. It doesn't mean being an asshole, but you stand up for what you believe in. And, do women like that? Well, apparently they do. I'm not going to wax lyrical on that because I've been married 3 times, so, I'm not the guy to ask that question. What do women want? Not a clue. What do I have to be, though? That much I know. I've got a goal. I know who I am. I know how I'm going to get there. I have a set of rules that will determine my behavior. I will not breach those rules. Because having done that in my earlier life, I can tell you to be free of it is something I never want to lose. Because that guilt for having, like my first wife acting like a complete jerk, like a lot of guys do, and to be free of that now, having apologized, having faced what I was, my act of contrition was sincere, and I am now free of that and moving forward. I can tell you where I am now is great. I will never transgress those values, those beliefs, those rules ever again, because the pain is just awful. To be free of the pain is magnificent. So I tell your listeners that story because it's important. That's just the way I did it. It works. It requires effort. Sometimes it requires struggle. But you better start now, folks, because what's coming will shatter you. What we're getting isn't Earth 2.0, old Earth 2.0. This is referred to as a new Earth and a new heaven, and they are very specific terms you need to study. Okay, Mike, I love you because you live this. You get it at a deep level. I'm still sort of like a child trying to grasp my way through this stuff. Man, I've got a different job to do other than you, so I do my job my way, you do your job your way. Everybody gets to enjoy the show. Now Scott does his work his way, and it's just fantastic. Everybody gets to watch and pick and choose. But I guess my final piece of advice, if you want to hear it, is get going, folks. Start examining who you are, what you want, how you're going to get there. For you, this is your life, not mine, Scott's, Mike's, anybody else's. Even Donald Trump's not God. Neither is Mike Flynn. Okay? So start that journey now, because if you wait, it'll hurt even more. So that's how you get through this. That's how you can handle it with a level of equanimity worthy of a man. And I'm talking to the men here, because men, if you do it, your family will do it. A father that prays, the family prays. It's just life. Sorry, ladies, that's the way it works. So, men, we have to step up. We have to become who we have to become. And we are what we were created to be. So your job is to find out what we were created to be, what you were created to do, and apply those Christian rules, Christ consciousness rules, to how you live your life. And before you know it, people will be following you, and you don't even know why.
That's a fact. I think the three of us have certainly found that out in the last 5 to 8 years. And the reality is, folks, is this: men, stop being a fucking doormat to anybody around you, to your own wife. Stop being a doormat. You better learn to become what a man is, because in this transition, you're going to have to be prepared, because it very well may not be pretty. It may be tough, and it's going to require some courage from the household. And if you have a family and you have children and you're carrying yourself like a milquetoast pussy, all I can say is shame on you, and I feel sorry for them. You should never cower to their terms of toxic masculinity. I step on a stage, I'm like, how do you folks like my toxic masculinity? I take all their words and I use it against them. I make it fun. I make it, it's a Saul Alinsky approach. But that's the problem. If we had men that still remembered who they were when they were born, at least in the prior generations, the Gen Z, we wouldn't be in this situation. But I'll also say this, in kind of closing out the show, is that what I'm not saying, folks, is throw your pastor out, stop going to church. No. You continue to go to your church every Sunday if that's what you do. Have that relationship with your pastor. These people are doing the best they can with the knowledge that they have, number one. Number two, what's important is the intention more than anything else. Even if we don't have a complete understanding of all of creation, of God, what God is, what it represents, of all of Christ's life or things they've hid from us, that's not the point. The point is your intention. That's why I love living here in Texas in the Bible Belt. It's with a couple people yesterday, excavators out on my ranch, talking about fixing some things up over there. And once again, another Texas rancher is bringing up God and bringing up church. Well, I love that. I love that, because here are good men with good intentions, and that's a very important part of their life. What I would say is continue on the same pathway, but open your mind and your soul up to the full truth that will come from your Creator, from the direct source, if you learn to shut the hell up and stop praying for shit. Start meditating. Have a blank mind. You cannot learn anything when your mouth is going, please this, please that, give me this. We're taught to pray, and praying is talking. How about silent praying? How about just being in the dark, disconnecting from anything that affects your sensory perceptions, and let this force infuse you with the spiritual wisdom that'll make you say, holy crap, now I understand. That's really what I'm saying. I'm not banging away on church, pastors, or religion. It's hard to let go of. It was very, very, very hard for me to do what I did in 1999 on that freeway and do this. And I said it, F you, fuck you, I'm done, drop the anvil. I don't give a shit. I'm not living another day like this. It was tearing my soul to pieces. And when I did that, I was totally free from that moment forward, and it allowed me to go on the pathway of quantum physics to try to understand the blueprint for the universe. But you know what it did? It brought me full circle. One night, you had your experience, Ricardo, so did I. One night came back full circle in one evening on a demand that I made before I laid down in bed. I need to know. I need to know. I went to bed that night. I awoke to the presence over my left shoulder because I was laying on my right side, sleeping upside down. I have no idea why I slept upside down, but that was memorable. And when I started to stir because that presence was there, my first thought was, is that you? Because I made the demand. Like, I wasn't asking nicely. I fall asleep, and then the presence, and when that presence stirred me, I wasn't completely awake, but when I stirred, and my first thought was, is that you? And wham! From my hair to my toenails, this photonic vibration or light shot through. I can feel it in my arms right now. Shot through me, and it was so magnificent. I just remember laying there, half asleep, saying, don't wake up. Don't you dare wake up. It's like when we're dreaming about you ladies, we're about ready to kiss you, and we're starting to come awake, like, don't you dare wake up till I get this in. We've all been through that, guys have been through that. And that's what I was going through. And I said to myself in my mind, just be. Just don't wake up, just be. And this went on for maybe 20, 30 seconds. All I know is I never fall asleep when I wake up. It takes me hours. Peacefully, went right back to sleep. Probably had a smile on my face, woke up the next day, and I've been different ever since. I've always had a love for humanity, but it skyrocketed from that moment forward. So all I'm saying is the pathway is not clear and it's not always direct. Mine wasn't. Yours doesn't have to be either, but at least contemplate there's other ways to get the knowledge of the full truth. That's coming whether you like it or not. Anyways, gentlemen, what a pleasure to have both of you here on one show tonight. I have to say this, the honor that I and all of the audience here feel for you two men, anybody that served in armed forces in any capacity, and you guys serving at the highest level of special operations, what that takes, and you're doing it truly in defense of your nations and mankind. There is no higher amount of respect to be granted to anybody than what you gentlemen have done in your careers, fighting for people you're never going to meet in your lifetime. So it's an honor to call you friends, and it's an honor to be able to sit at the same table you guys are at. So much love to both of you. Wow, those are the most powerful words I ever just heard from these two men right there. I'll be damned. Anyways.